Okay, no, for real. Not on this podcast.
Not on my good Christian podcast.
We're not doing that here. I'm just seeing if he gets picked up on the. Been a minute. Internet Archive's been down, and we've been in need of stuff to talk about. So it's been
a month.
Like we've
been a spell.
We're just getting the customary apology for not getting content out for the two people who listen.
Right.
And
even though this will probably be out on regular time at YouTube anyway.
Even though we really ought not apologize because we have warned the listeners and multiple the viewers that the content is going to be irregular.
It's been our pattern for a while, so if they expect any more of us, that's shame on them.
You may hope, but expectation is unreasonable.
Yeah.
So now we got that out of the way. How we been doing? How we doing, boys?
Good, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
It goes.
Life goes on.
Life goes on.
Life goes on in a way that's,
long
not bad.
Long after the thrill of living is gone.
Uh-huh. Little ditty.
About Jack and Diane.
There's like a YouTube short that like
I assume that's the redeem code for Plague Tale that you got for free.
That is what that is.
Okay, cool. I'll have to redeem that at some point. I've actually got a little bit of a list of things to do now because I'm maybe not quite halfway in God of War.
How far did you get? What?
I stopped to do a couple of side quests, but after we got the head.
Okay, so you're like a good third of the way through.
Okay. It's still ways to go.
Yeah. The head sticks with you for most of your adventure.
Okay. Yeah.
He's a character.
Yep. A disembodied head. So yeah, making my way through God of War. And then I have to play a Plague's Tale, even though we've covered it.
It's still a cool game.
It is. And then at some point when it probably goes on sale for like the Steam Winter Sale or something, I do want to play Red Dead Redemption.
The original, yeah.
That's finally on PC.
It's on a lot of platforms now, actually. The remaster,
like 14 years.
Yeah, like I was surprised to find out they put it on Switch.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, we're in on a PS3.
Graphically speaking, it probably is plenty capable of running it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if it can run Doom Eternal with a bunch of downgrades, then a PS3 game's no problem.
Yeah, for sure.
Even if it is, like, remaster a bit.
And, like, it was, they announced and released the Red Dead on PC right around the time I was starting to heavily weigh replaying Red Dead 2. So I'm like, okay, I'll have something else to scratch that itch then. So yeah, I got probably more than enough to get me through the winter.
Your gaming stash for the winter to get you through hibernation.
I'm a gaming squirrel. I got
a gamer squirrel.
I gotta store up my game nuts for the winter. These game nuts.
You gotta fill your cheeks with the games to play over the winter.
Exactly. And scurry back to my burrow.
Into your tree.
Yes.
Your gamer nut cache.
Mm-hmm.
Never say those words again.
We're gonna have to clear the cache after that one.
We certainly will.
But yeah, no. So I should be pretty set for the winter. We just finished playing through Halo Infinite with John.
Well, you guys did.
We did, yeah. That was kind of fun to have.
Like I was out at Bible study though. So.
Yeah, it was fun to have something to like do, like pretty much every Monday, just kind of regularly.
Yeah, so having a little regularly scheduled gaming.
Yeah, because after we finished Grounded, we took a break for a while from doing that sort of thing, and then we did Infinite. But I would like to maintain some sort of maybe not necessarily weekly, and obviously
but like semi-regular.
Yeah, semi-regular game time with the boys because it's always good. We just have to figure out what it is we're
if we
going
can
to
get
play.
the Dolphin to play nice again, I want to finish Four
We do
Sword
need to
Adventures.
finish 4 Sword. Maybe that's what we do next. Just get that done.
We have to figure out John's network problems.
Oh yeah,
And or get him to come over here.
yeah,
So we can play it online.
because it worked well enough.
Yeah.
For a while.
But then I think we moved.
I moved.
You moved.
And my internet was terrible at Duncan's.
Yeah.
At that point.
But the issue seems to be our connection with John. Because
We're losing that connection with him, man.
But I mean, because before he was able to play with us without issues, and then more recently, of course, he's been doing some VPN stuff that's been causing issues. So who knows? But yeah, if we'll get that sorted out, it'd be nice to, because we still have a ways to go in 4 Swords, don't we?
We do. We are like 3 worlds in out of 8.
Okay, yeah, so a fair bit.
Yeah,
So that'll at least get us to probably around Christmas time, I suppose.
I suppose. I just finished recently playing through the first Resident Evil game, actually.
Oh, yes.
I finished that on Halloween itself, actually.
Oh, nice. That time
So it's kind of thematically appropriate. And it's kind of funny because it's early 3D. It's got tank controls, right? But in spite of that, and in part because of that, I kind of dig it. It's very different. Because like one thing they do with the original PS1 game had like pre-rendered JPEG backgrounds and like had your little low poly Jill walk around on it. And they kind of maintain that in the GameCube remake. I played it on GameCube.
Yeah.
And so, like, as you walk around the room, there'll be, like, 2 or 3 different, like, camera angles that it'll cut to, which gives it kind of a cinematic quality.
Yeah.
It's like you're playing through a B horror film, you know? Right down to the kind of campy dialogue and over-the-top villain at the end.
Right.
But there's also just, like, some really effective sequences in there sometimes. One that really sticks out to me is you walk into this one bedroom that's of this like mansion that's built over this research lab that's like developing zombie virus weapon stuff. And it gets out, and all the researchers start dying and stuff. And so there's lots of like little tragic stories hidden. Like you pick up some notes, or like you pick up one particular note in a bedroom where there is a man hanging from the ceiling, a body hanging from the ceiling. It's like, oh. That's a dark implication of like, and you read through his note, and it's like, oh, this is sad. Then you go into the bathroom, pull the plug on the bathtub, and grab the key at the bottom, and you hear a thud in the next room, and he's not hanging there anymore. And then there's a zombie in that room. It's like, oh, that was. There's some sequences in there where it's like really, really effectively put together. Is like,
it's almost kind of like the environmental storytelling you find in like Fallout,
and like
for example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Like that sort of thing. Yeah.
Like,
one thing I observed about from watching your stream was like the background was like a little more darkly lit than the main character, so that like it stands out a little better. Kind of like the classic animation trick where like the cells that you wanted to focus on are a little more.
Although I did,
colored.
maybe it's blasphemous, but I value my ability to see things and play the game over the intended atmosphere. So whenever I play a game with like a horror bend to it, I kind of crank the brightness, like in the gamma, and even
on non-horror games, I've done that on occasions.
And then on top of that, it was still like indiscernibly dark. So on the HDMI adapter for the GameCube I actually adjusted the values on that to give a slightly brighter
We
picture.
had an old tube monitor, and when we tried to play some games on there, like there was only so bright that thing could go.
Right.
And it was just like, I don't know what's happening. It is so dark in this corner of the game. I don't know what's going on.
And like, I get it. You want the dark atmosphere. You want to feel trapped in the darkness. That's kind of part of the experience. But I want to have fun and play the freaking game. I can't aim at the zombie if I can't see where its head is. I can hardly aim at it to begin with the tank controls. Even if I could aim at it, I wouldn't be good at it because gunplay. But so that's like one of my like weird preferences where it's like I get why people choose to slide the darkness value so that you can barely see the one picture but kind of see the other, but not see the other one.
I prefer to see.
Yeah. Especially when there's like, movement involved. Like you're supposed to like walk over beyond a cliff and not roll off.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know it's called Dark Souls, but like it doesn't have to be that dark.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when there's pitfalls.
Right. There's pitfalls to that.
The whole point is that you're supposed to die to them without seeing them.
Yes.
That is part of the experience of Dark Souls. You're just going to get killed by some random nonsense that you couldn't have possibly anticipated. That is by design. That is not a flaw.
And there's plenty of that, even when I turn the brightness up just a titch.
There's no escaping it.
Yeah,
there's no escaping it, yeah.
We need to get you to play it sometime. At the very least, the opening.
If I really hate myself, I'll probably do it, yeah. Because even like some of the fights early on in God of War, I was like starting to get really mad.
Yeah, I started.
But then like once you upgrade, it gets a little more reasonable.
Then after you get like the light bow for Atreus, and you can do he can stack up a bunch of stagger on dudes.
Yeah,
really handy.
Yeah,
but like I started that game with like, what difficulty do I want to play? Normal, the intermediate, the hard, the very hard. I'll try the slightly hard. Like there was one fight early on that kind of walled me off, and I'm like, okay, I'll go back to normal.
Yeah,
I'm no pro expert on this game. I'm just
the
guy.
Normal difficulty. Yeah.
I mean, at least it's not easy mode.
Right, exactly.
Difficulty where it's just tuning up numbers isn't interesting to me.
Yeah.
There's a certain amount of you design your game a certain way, and the only way to really make it more difficult is to bump up the numbers. But yeah, it's just like I like the Dark Souls approach where there is no difficulty. This is just the game. You just have to get good.
That is a very old school like design philosophy. You go back to the arcades, they're unfair to eat quarters, but it's one difficulty. You play, an old Castlevania, an old Mega Man, they're just kind of the one difficulty. Dark Souls is very old-fashioned in its approach to game design, in a way that's like fresh for.
And it has a reputation for doing it.
Serves its thematic purposes.
Oh yeah,
it's very existential. Like this is just life. Life just kind of sucks sometimes.
And when like the point of the game is to be hard, and it only and it follows in through with the story, right? They designed the game to be hard, and then wrote the story so that it being hard was part of the storytelling. That's just smart and efficient and clever. That's also very like an old school design. Because like if you think about like the first, why is Luigi exactly like Mario? Because they needed a player too, right? So, but they after the fact were like, okay, he's green, he's his brother. That's how we'll explain how they're
really
exactly
suck for colorblind people to play that together.
I don't know. But
sorry,
the point I'm trying to make it like back in the day, there was a lot of like where the game design informed the lore versus like the other way around, which both ways are good, but like
that's very much Nintendo's thing, I think.
Even now,
the game design informs the lore, not the other way around.
Yeah, still, but like you see that with Dark Souls bit, where it's like these games are hard, and so the lore is dark and grim, the world is dark and grim, the monsters are dark and grim. To like all fit thematically, it would be a novelty to see like a cute chibi Pokemon like sparkly adventure game that is as hard as Dark Souls is. That could be fun.
Cuphead is perhaps as close to that as exists at the moment.
True. There's also something kind of weird and uncanny about those old animations that it kind of leans into for its boss designs.
Yeah.
Which I need to play through that entirely. I've only played a couple little levels here and there.
Yeah, I think Bryant and John were playing it way back, but never finished it. And then there's the whole Netflix show that ran its course.
Yeah.
Kind of in conjunction with it.
Well, it's funny because like after the game came out, they were developing the DLC for so long. You got 2 seasons of an animated show before the DLC showed up.
And animated shows take a long time to make.
Right. Well, that's because of they're doing all this by hand. They're doing all the animation the old school way.
Right, exactly.
Which I respect the heck out of.
Yeah.
That is, they could have taken any number of shortcuts.
I don't
but
think it's the same guy, but have you seen that Mouse Detective shooter that's
I
coming
have
out?
seen that, like, I have seen it, yes.
It's like, it kind of looks like old Doom, basically.
Yeah, it's like a boomer shooter, but with, like, 1920s rats.
And
Interesting.
squish and stretch style animation for everything.
And so, yeah, it caught my eye, and it's like, I'll throw it on my Steam wish list to keep an eye on it. Not that I'm particularly invested in shooters, but, like, if you're going to do something different to catch my eye, then I respect it.
Well, speaking of never getting finished,
Yeah, we're the Plating Papist. I'm James.
I'm Nathan.
and I'm Riley.
We're doing it's sort of a weird hybrid, but we're going to call it a super serial because that's the majority of the content. Super serial about the short-lived TV series Firefly.
So we're getting...
The weird hybrid thing is because when they canceled the show, they did like a movie to kind of wrap everything up.
like a
in a more
like
satisfying
finale
way.
special thing.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, directed and written by Joss Whedon in like 2002.
Josh Whedon.
Josh Whedon. No, Joss Whedon.
Yeah.
It's about Joss Queen.
Whatever happened to that guy? I think he got in trouble for something. Anyway.
I don't know. But this is a sci-fi show about a distant future where Earth is no longer inhabitable, so humans take to the stars and colonize planets. There's like the core planets that are like all together in hunky-dory alliance for utopias. Then you got the outer planets that are like the lawless Wild West.
And sort of the outside known space, which is plagued with
Space pirates.
ravenous, carnivorous, vicious people called the Reavers.
Yes. So at the start of the show, there was a civil war between the outer planets and the core worlds. The core worlds are trying to establish a unified government to like bring everybody into their little empire, and everyone else is just like, leave me alone in my little planet. I just want to do my thing without government interference. The resistance loses, and on the losing team, we had a
Captain Malcolm Reynolds,
Captain Malcolm Reynolds, and his
played by Nathan Fillion.
yes, and he has a second in command lady. It's not Roxy, is it?
No.
It's we watched.
We
the
just
whole show.
watched the thing yesterday.
Des.
No.
No.
Zoe.
Zoe. It had a Z in it. I remember.
Zoe. Yep.
Had a Z or an X. Yeah, Zoe.
Her husband, Wash.
Her husband Wash is their pilot of their Firefly class starship where they run.
The Serenity.
Yeah, the Serenity. They run like deliveries, smuggling, not all of it legal, you know. They've also got their brilliant mechanic, Kaylee, who is kind of just into machines.
A little too much.
A little bit. But, and so they're doing their job, doing their stuff. Along the way, one day, they pick up a preacher man called Shepherd Book, who's like, yeah, I'll hang out for adventures and tour the world. And
Initially
spread
to
the
get a
gospel.
ride to a place, and he doesn't quite know where.
And also, they pick up mysterious cargo from a certain Dr. Simon, and turns out he's being chased by the government because the cargo is his sister, who he busted out of a high-security secret testing facility that they were doing funky stuff to her brain. So over the course of this show, we're not going to like go into specific episodes. Might
There's also the weird prostitute lady because for some reason in this universe that's like a noble thing to do. What did you mean by this, Josh Whedon?
It's the Wild West. Those kinds
Yeah.
of establishments were a thing in the Wild West, and this is his space Wild West.
Yep.
And so they have her.
Oh,
hanging
and
out
then
in the
there's
ship
Jane,
too.
the
And then Jane,
the muscle.
They're muscle. They're part of the crew too.
Occasional comic relief.
Yes. So this ragtag crew go on multiple adventures, doing multiple jobs that usually go south, dodging
Yeah.
reavers, dodging the government.
Captain Malcolm decides to keep the doctor and his sister on board because he has sort of a he kind of comes to adopt them as part of his crew, and he's fiercely loyal, despite the risks and dangers of
Harboring the fugitives.
He hates the Alliance to begin with because of the Civil War, and this brings more Alliance trouble to him. But he kind of balances those two things out. But it causes tension throughout the show.
Causes the Alliance to be on their case all the time. There's Jane's mostly interested in money, and so he's like, "Oh, there's a bounty on these two. Maybe I'll threaten to turn them into the Alliance to get money, and then get double crossed, and then help them out again, and then redeem myself to the crew."
Over time, we find River, the Doctor's sister.
Yep.
Her abilities start to become more and more apparent to the rest of the crew.
Right, because
she's psychic and a little not quite
Yeah, they removed some of her mental inhibitions, so she's kind of just got. She has no self-control. She does what she wants, and she's a mind reader. It turns out. It's revealed very late into the series, but pretty apparent throughout. She almost gets burned as a witch for it.
Yep, and she's also kind of a weapon as well.
Yeah.
She's quite capable in a fight. And the whole crew is a little bit scared of her. They want to take care of her and stuff, but they're like, "You're going to keep your sister under control, right, Doc?" Kind of a thing.
Right. And there's also some will they won't they tension between Captain Mal and Inara, the prostitute lady, where he's like, I'm gonna be stoic and not talk about my feelings on my ship, and you're part of my crew, and don't cause no trouble because women folk cause trouble. And she's
I'm gonna
just
pretend I'm too good for you,
and I'm too professional to make lasting relationships work because of my work is entirely in not forming relationships. So I'm not gonna form anything with you at all. And so they won't they until she leaves at the end of the show, which gets undone in the movie. But
right?
Because after the show ends, they follow up with the movie Serenity, where finally the government gets just
there's really nothing narratively with the series that ends. It just sort of was cut mid-season, so they had to pick things up. So it's not if you know the basics of the show, you know enough to watch the movie.
Right. We just gave you the basics of the show. That's kind of the dynamics. But in the movie, they start by doing a job, just robbing a bank, typical bank robbery. Get interrupted by Reavers. River's on the mission, and Simon's not happy about that.
Nope.
He's like, "You brought my sister on a job, and she could have gotten eaten alive or worse." And they're like,
Reavers show up and destroy the town.
I said that.
Oh, right, yeah. Well,
sorry. Pay attention.
I was replaying the movie in my brain a little bit because we just watched it yesterday.
Right. But then the government sends their biggest, baddest assassin man to go after River because
the actor's last name I can't pronounce, but he's Mordo in Doctor Strange, I guess, and he's
Oh, okay. But because during her experimentation, right, the scientists working on her, showed her off to various politicians and stuff like, "Hey, this is the top secret project we're working on. She's psychic and probably read your mind and picked up a few government secrets on accident."
So he's going around tying up loose ends.
That's what the movie's all about.
Kind of a psychotic killer, and specially authorized by the Parliament government of the Alliance to do whatever he has to. So he's basically going around doing, killing with impunity as he sees fit, and is a bit of a threat.
So as Mal is finishing up this deal, the bank robbery deal with their contact, River watches or sees something that triggers her secret weapon training, and she goes all assassin mode, ninjas everybody
Beats
in
up
the
an
bar,
entire bar, yeah.
Until Simon pops in, says the kill word that shuts her down, the safe word, and they load her back up on the ship, and they're like, "What was that? You didn't tell us she had an off button, or that she could do that." Do that? He's like, "I don't know what she could do. They pulled her brain apart and put it back together. What do I know? I'm just a doctor.
Yeah,
I'm not a brain doctor." And so they're all contemplating, what do we do with River? What do we do about River? And she's not taking that the best either. And in her trance, she said a name, the name of a planet.
Melody.
It turns out,
Melody, I think. No.
No.
It does start with an M.
We should have looked. We were flying.
We just watched the movie
We did.
yesterday. You think you'd be able to remember?
Martha.
Yeah, Martha. Why did you say that name?
Regardless, they figure out it's the name of a planet. They're like, oh, it's nearby. Let's go check out what's on the planet. And they're like, no, it's past Reaver territory. It's open space where the space pirates are. We can't go through there. Until the secret agent man blows up one of their safe houses where Shepherd Book was staying, and then Shepherd Book dies, and it's like, oh no.
Well, because like the government agent dude is just going around and killing everybody they've ever associated with themselves, associated with to flush them out.
Right. And so Mal's like, okay, we're going to paint our ship up like it's a Reaver ship. We're going to strap dead bodies to it and put spikes on it and a gun. And then we're just going to soar right through them like we belong and then go to that abandoned planet. They go to the unmarked planet that she mentioned. And like everybody's dead there. Like it doesn't even, it's like everybody died in the middle of doing their day. So they explore a bit.
No signs of violence or anything.
No signs of violence.
No poison.
A bunch of just environmental storytelling as they walk around. Then they get to the core of the thing. There's like a research ship there that they watch it. It's like, oh, we were experimenting on this planet to make the populace more docile. We altered the atmosphere to introduce new chemicals. It killed half of them. It caused some of them to be...
Miranda. That's the name.
Miranda.
Okay.
Anyway, it caused half of them to become so docile they didn't do anything and just laid there and died. And the other half of the population went absolutely bonkers and became the Reavers.
They did the Jedi Temple thing where they erased the planet from the record books because it didn't exist.
Exactly. Because if they made a mistake, you can't make a mistake. We're the Alliance. We're the good guys.
So they find some security camera footage of a lady saying, I'm going to die, but this is what happened. We basically gassed the whole planet to make them peaceful. And some people, they became so peaceful they didn't do anything and just kind of starved to death. While a whole lot of the people had the opposite reaction and became horrifically violent. And that's what created the Reavers.
And that is also the secret that River heard, was Miranda the planet was a thing, and she had dreams about the people dead there. Mm-hmm. So they're like, well, now we know where Reavers come from. This is a big darn government secret that should be known because it's been a secret for so long.
I always knew I hated the government.
And this gives me legitimacy more than I had before. So they go to one of their contacts who's like this techie guy with
Mr. Universe. He has a giant TV room.
Yes, he's got all the feeds on all the cameras in all the world or universe. So they head there in that direction. Secret Agent Man anticipates their moves and meets them there, but Reynolds
with a huge fleet.
With a huge fleet, yeah. But then Reynolds aggroes the Reavers and gets them to give him cover essentially from his fleet. Mm-hmm. There's a big fight as they crash land on the planet. Wash dies in the crash.
Rip
Wash.
Alan Tudyk.
They make it into Mr. Universe's secret bunker. Half of them are holding
secret
off.
bunker is destroyed, but actually there's this even more secret
bunker that
with a backup.
Captain Reynolds goes to.
And he's followed by Agent Man.
And they fight, but Reynolds gets the truth out, and River goes sicko mode on all the Reavers to keep them at bay and save all of her friends. And that's kind of where the movie ends it. They bury their dead.
Well, they managed to get the broadcast out, and Secret Agent Man is like, the government does suck. All right, I'll let you guys go. And yeah, then they repair the ship and head off and have a funeral for Wash
and Shepherd Book and the whole thing.
Yep.
So yeah,
so imagine if a headstone is like the NBC Sunday night football things with the players as they're like looking up, not saying their names, but they have like holograms on their headstones playing on a loop like that. Mm-hmm. That's what I thought.
It's futury.
Yeah,
for 2002.
Mm-hmm. It's a very. I guess we can get into cool stuff now.
Yeah, that so ends the summary. We can pull out.
It's very episodic. Like there's arcs that carry through episodes, but
And we can talk about them when we get into talk about specific characters and what we like and don't like about them, but
there's a bit of character development that
Quite a
that
bit.
does happen. Yeah.
because, like, for example, Jane starts out as just kind of the wild gun that you don't know if you trust. And there you have good reason to not trust him because he does double cross River and Simon in one episode.
Comes back around from doing that.
He
But
comes back around from doing that, but Malcolm wheels on him and is like, I'm going to dump you out the airlock unless you, like, repent right now.
Yep.
And from that point forward, he's, kind of scared
More or less
straight.
in line. Yeah.
But also, like, kind of tries to make it up.
We never really find out what Shepard's deal was because remember when he was he was injured and then like an Alliance ship showed up and they fixed him up and didn't ask any questions and he was apparently some like important person in the Alliance back.
That was one of the loose threads that kind of decided to purposefully leave mysterious.
Yeah, odds are my guess was he was probably just like the son of some important like family in the Alliance or so. He was some important person in the Alliance and then chose to become Shepard, leave his past life behind because apparently he knows a lot about combat and fighting and stuff. But
And about their tactics and like they're going to come for you, Malcolm. They don't they operate like this.
yeah, so he at some point left some sort of position in the Alliance to become a preacher.
So yeah, it's one of those like they left a lot of really fun threads that could have been picked up in a season 2 or 3. And I feel like the movie Serenity is kind of like took 2 of those ideas and kind of trimmed them down and mashed them into one movie. Because it kind of needed to put a capstone on the River thing.
Like you could totally see them having like an entire season worth of content and like, or even like half a season in that movie.
Right. And
Like it works well. It's not rushed, but it's like they definitely you could see this being serialized.
because while like I can accept the Reavers as a entity that exists, like of course there's space crazy pirates on the edge of the universe, but giving them an origin story is like, oh, that's not something I thought about.
Because in the first half of the show, it's like, oh yeah, they just kind of rumor is they just kind of went crazy in space because they were out there for too long. It's like, oh, this is a more satisfying explanation to me at least.
Yeah, but it's one of those things that I could have left on the table as just like a thing of the world, right? It's the universe they inhabit, but they had plans to talk about how the evil government was involved with it, you know?
The aesthetic of the show is very campy, like early 2000s. I think like the movie came out in like 2005.
Yeah.
The series was a little earlier than that.
Yeah. You can tell it's sci-fi on a TV budget in the early 2000s.
Yeah, for sure.
And it shows.
It feels a lot like old episodes of Doctor Who when you're looking at it.
Kinda, yeah.
Maybe not quite as cheesy,
Yeah.
but
It's like prequel trilogy Star Wars on more of a budget.
right, yeah.
So the seams show a lot more. I mean, there's definitely some shots from like, this feels like if it was like lower...
The production quality is definitely higher in the movie.
Oh yeah, definitely. But even then, they tried to pull off more in the movie, effects-wise. And I feel like they ran up against the limits of their budget and capabilities more so than they did with the show.
Right.
Because they were a little more ambitious. Because like the show...
Because that movie came out the same year Revenge of the Sith did.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting.
But like... That isn't to say anything bad about it. It's
No.
just like you can tell. It's
Yeah, you have to like understand where it came from.
and that's just it's not a bad thing.
No, it doesn't. Like to me, like you just accept it and like
And
okay,
it's-
you just get into the world and take it for what it is.
And it's not a show that like is built on the spectacle of its like effects. It's built on the characters. Like the effects and the ship, the stuff's there for setting the scene, but it's not like the point. The point is you go there for the team dynamics and the fun characters. Which, having pretty much the only other thing I've seen from Joss Whedon be the first Avengers film, I saw a lot of that in this.
I think he also did it. Ultron.
He did the first 2, didn't he?
Yeah.
But like the kind of awkward ragtag group that kind of finds a way to work together despite their differences. It's like it felt like a more crass Avengers.
Yeah, Well, it's kind of like when you look at it, like the Avatar series and like how Dave Filoni, like later on, how he tackles storytelling. It's kind of analogous here because it's like that's kind of how he got his start, as a
So it's kind of
showrunner.
like almost something familiar about sitting down to. It's like, oh, I got a pulse on this, you know.
Mhm. Yeah, it was pretty neat. And the aesthetic, like we were talking to Andrew about it. Like I was watching it, and he's like, yeah, he summed it up. It's like it's a space western. It's like you got your old Civil War veteran who's going around doing odd jobs and stuff, and the
Yep.
preacher man and all this, putting a gang together, taking care of people after the Civil War because he's still a soldier, like
Yeah.
fits a lot of the old tropes, but in a sci-fi setting. So it's an interesting juxtaposition that the show manages to pull off.
Which like there's a lot of both like it's funny how sci-fi kind of a lot of space travel sci-fi does draw from like old westerns and old samurai films, where westerns and samurai films are both based on displaced warriors.
Yep.
And so in this show you've got this displaced soldier from a war. Like you see that in The Mandalorian and in Cowboy Bebop, even with like the gang stuff.
Yeah.
Which this is just kind of American Cowboy Bebop on some level.
Right.
I was just about to comment on that. It's
Yeah.
just kind of a larger gang.
Yeah.
Further in the future. But yeah, the technology is still. Yeah, they kind of stuck with the aesthetics of Western, not just like the storytelling aspects of it. Like
It's
there's
not
literal
glitzy,
horseback chase
glammy,
scenes.
futuristic space. It's like a gritty, metallic, slapped together space.
Mm-hmm. It's
There's literal horse chases in the show.
Well, some people are on horses, some people are on like hover tanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like
And there's like a slight Mad Max quality to it, especially with the Reavers and
yeah,
stuff.
when they're on like the outer worlds and the edge of society and most of it's desert because they had like one state that they filmed in.
Yeah, it would surprise me if this show was even in part like inspiration for like Borderlands, for example, or that's a pure speculation.
At least they have a shared origin for their inspirations.
Right, yeah.
At the very least.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes like things aren't directly. It's just,
Gritty,
like, they're
dirty
both-
space.
And even that goes back to Star Wars with the Millennium Falcon being a hunk of junk, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like this show could have been a fan fiction about Han Solo.
Could have, yeah.
Because that's the kind of adventure, cowboy, outlaw vibe they're going for.
Mm.
And it's fun. It pulls it off very nicely, and the characters are entertaining and
Yeah.
have some interesting...
And they don't bother
Dynamics.
with alien races or weird mystical powers or anything like that. It's just human beings in space, which is kind of uncommon for like a humans in space story these days.
There's hardly even any robots.
Because in that one episode where there's like this hoax of a alien creature, I was like, oh yeah, there are no aliens in this show, are there?
This is just humans went to a different galaxy, terraformed a bunch of planets so they could live on them, brought their horses and cows and sheep.
And just kept being humans.
Yeah. Which is a kind of a different way to take it, but makes it unique.
Yeah. And I kind of like that for a change because sometimes you're just like, okay, like I don't really care about the aliens.
Like, how is your forehead prosthetics going to be different today, Star Trek?
Right, exactly. So I think just cutting that out altogether kind of makes it easier to focus on the show. It makes it more grounded, honestly.
And it lowers the budget on costumes and makeup.
For sure. For sure.
Which was probably part of it.
Right. Even so, I kind of like that aspect of it.
Yeah,
That
It's refreshing to have that once in a while.
'Cause
I do like a good alien, but
but there's always these dang alien bastards.
they're real.
I've got to go to work tomorrow.
I don't even care.
Now that the government confirmed it, I'm not so sure. Anyway, any other cool things about Firefly?
There's like a lot of little cool things,
Hmm.
but like on a broad scale, that's kind of the gist of it.
Yeah.
Cool Western, fun characters.
It's well known for being a cult classic because it's almost in a kind of dead media because it was canceled so soon into it and people were interested enough in it. You know, they created the movie to kind of tie things up, but I think it's almost better that it wasn't like, because you could see if it was a show that ran on forever, that eventually like the quality would.
Now, I could see 3 or 4 seasons
Right.
doing just fine.
Yeah.
But like if it goes too much
you
beyond
turn it
that,
into a blacklist where it's like this show ran for 4 seasons and could have stopped there, but for some reason they made 13. Like you were well past the point where you've worked through your character arcs and narrative progression.
and half the cast has been rotated through because they just wanted out or got killed off for whatever reason.
Especially in that era of TV, because this was when you had like those.
And network was kind of the only TV there was.
Yeah. Because this is still early 2000s.
Yep. It's kind of a mercy that it didn't go that route, but it's also kind of unfortunate it didn't
'Cause you
get
could
its
see-
full potential as a show.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of a balance.
It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't a little bit.
Right. But I think it kind of creates like, it's almost like a little, it makes the show more unique and attractive to me at least. Where
And-
it's like, yeah, let's see what the show, because it kind of leaves you with a permanent tantalization of potential.
It's also more achievable as a bucket list show to watch because it's like,
What, 13 episodes?
yeah, like a dozen episodes in the movie. Versus, hey, you should watch this show, but you only need to watch season 3 through 14. That's the good stuff.
Right.
And it's like, at a certain point, I'm like, I kind of don't care anymore. I'll just watch The Simpsons through memes and clips.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't think I've ever sat through an entire. No, okay. I've only ever sat through an entire episode of The Simpsons once in a class.
I sat through one of the Treehouse of Horror episodes because it was Halloween and my brother-in-law was there and he's like, I want to watch this with you guys. 'Cause I like
Okay.
it.
I did watch.
It was a great pumpkin parody.
I watched several seasons of Futurama and then kind of got bored of it. Anyway,
Point is, mercifully short, in a
also
put out of
sad.
its misery kind of way
Yeah.
before it could get on its feet.
prematurely. Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of unique in that way. Because a lot of shows just get canceled before they ever air. This one aired for a while, then got canceled, like without even finishing its season.
And then because there's like I borrowed the DVDs from a friend in my Bible study, and I was looking at the back and like, oh, they have the air dates on here. These two said they never aired. Huh. Okay. They also had like some of the edgiest content in the show,
Right.
which might have also contributed to both the cancellation and the fact that these 2 episodes in particular didn't air.
Yep. Well, it strikes me as something where I feel like with shows sometimes they would like create episodes where it's like, okay, this might not air, but let's like get edgy and see what we can get away with, kind of a thing. Might have been something like that.
Could have been.
But the show is canceled regardless. So, any other cool things we wanted to discuss with Firefly?
Not before we get into the nothing that
Analysis.
we wouldn't cover in the other things.
Cool.
Having not seen it, I don't have a lot to add.
Yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Truth. What truths can we find in Firefly? Family.
Kind of is.
That was one thing I was going to talk about is like, do they take more of a found family approach or is it more of a ragtag group of people whose lives are intersecting and they kind of inhabit that space so long as they find it mutually beneficial a la Cowboy Bebop?
I think for a lot of the crew, it's intersecting people, and then for Malcolm and a few like main character Mal and a couple of his crew people, they're like, for him it's definitely found family.
Well,
like he's
he's also ex war he's a war veteran. He's used to having a squad that sticks together and no man is left behind, and having this kind of code of honor of
Commanding
soldiers,
respect
commanding respect, and like his word is law when he's in charge. So like he kind of has this military attitude that he brings to this group of ragtag group of people who are kind of conveniently there together. So he's got this kind of wrestling with, are these just people I hire, or are these my group of soldiers? Are these my family? Without wanting to actually, talk
Commit
about
to
his
one.
feelings or anything, or commit to
Right.
thinking one. Because
Depending on the episode and what the situation requires, different aspects of that relationship with his crew come out.
and it is kind of interesting how multifaceted it is. And how it does come out throughout the series, because he's like, one time he'll be fiercely loyal, defending the honor of, this companion he's got on his thing with a sword duel to the death. The next he'll be blowing her off and telling her to do whatever while he does cowboy stuff.
Yep.
And so, but yeah, I think it's kind of one of the core questions it kind of plays with.
Yeah.
Then of course you got like River and Simon.
Yeah.
And they're like,
literal brother and sister, so family there.
and his loyalty and dedication to protecting her and finding out what's wrong and caring for her through her mental illness stuff, at the detriment of his own self. And then, of course, you've got Wash and Zoe, who are married. And Malcolm's like, "Oh, don't split your loyalties, woman." And she's like, I'm loyal to you as captain, but that's my husband. So there's a different kind of loyalty there.
Yep.
And then, like, the preacher man, Shepherd Book's kind of an enigma throughout, where he's like, he's religious and devout, but also...
He's not opposed to shooting guys in the kneecaps,
Yeah.
for example.
And of course, Jane is like the most volatile of the group, who's like, I'm just here for the money. And so that kind of pushes against Malcolm's, philosophy of, like, we're a unit, we're a crew, part of the ship, part of the crew.
And at times the crew, they have like family dinners almost, where they're talking and laughing, telling stories, and then they're having fights and things like that. So it doesn't quite go full Guardians of the Galaxy, where they are like absolutely a family unit. They're a crew. They're also kind of a family. They're still a crew. Kind of holds those two in tension.
So it's like, what is the nature of their loyalties and where do they lie?
Yeah, loyalty seems to be like the consistent theme throughout the show.
One of them, yeah. As well as just like Mal's desire for freedom. Every
he's a
job,
rogue, but he also has a code.
right? In every job, he's looking for a way out, a way to live easy, a way to live without the alliance down his back. He's looking for freedom. He wants to just fly around on his Firefly.
Just
There's
like
like a really-
cowboys in the Old West just want to roam free and not
Yeah.
be hampered by the civilized world.
Actually, listen to the theme song, like the whole "You can't take the sky from me," where it's like, I don't care about any planets, any world. Just like, let me have a space of space to be me, because space is so big. Why do you gotta get in on my business? So like, he's kind of got this. I look out for me and mine. Don't get in my way of what I want, because I'm looking out for me and mine.
Yeah.
Which we're in the truth segment though.
We are though. Yeah.
We're in a tight spot.
Yeah. I was trying to think of like, okay, so how do we bring
So
this?
these are all like the
It's all good.
theme
It's all
seg-
good like themes and insights, but I'm trying to think like, where does this fit into the whole truth aspect of stuff? Family.
Loyalty is good.
Yes.
And that's kind of like where they land at the end of the movie Serenity, where it's like, You've got this bad guy who thinks he's principled. He's like, I'm eliminating a world without sin. You know what your sin is? It's pride because you did this, and I'm going to stab you with the sword that's mine, but it's going to be a you fall on your own sword samurai death symbolically thing. Anyway, it's like he's trying to clean up the mess of the world. When Mal's just like, people are messy. It's the way it is.
And
you gotta meet them where they're at. And
Secret Agent Man finds that like the government is creating just as many messes on their own.
Exactly.
So his loyalty is also, well, he's sort of a free agent. It's implied towards the end of it.
Kinda, yeah. But like, he sticks with his crew through the mess.
Yeah.
Because people are messy.
Malcolm does.
Malcolm does, yes. And they, at the end, they kind of all come together, and it's like Doc and River have her mental health mess and their government mess, but we were loyal through that because loyalty to
It also
crew,
helps that
loyalty to
he's
family.
a doctor and can patch up the crew.
I mean, yeah, it's good. He's a good asset on the team. And apparently, if they know the right way to trigger it, so is River now.
Yeah.
She could give Jane a run for his money.
Yep. Any other truths we can find in Firefly?
I think that's kind of the
Yeah,
biggest
the show
ones.
isn't super deep.
It didn't.
They have
also
a few episodes where they're like, like talking about like sort of Machiavellian, like, you find a man's like true self when he's in his deepest, darkest hour or something like that, in immense pain or suffering, something like that. I don't know.
The other thing
there's
is,
some
this is
interesting
just
episodes.
one season,
Right.
with the intention of going on.
Right.
So if they had more themes to explore,
They were just very
they
busy
didn't
setting
really-
everything up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which they have interesting themes. They just kind of don't make a hard declaration on them, aside from the necessity of loyalty and,
Yeah.
and in a family and a crew,
Yep.
and then just like sticking together through tough times, right? None of them can make it on their own. It's by coming together that they are able to survive and do as well as they can, despite the adversities.
Yeah. Goodness. I'd say, to the extent to which like the people in the crew are loyal, like there's a lot of goodness in there. Obviously, like Zoe and Wash, they're married and love each other, and they have their spats every now and again, but they're also
But they work it out and they
Yeah.
come together at the end. And then, Simon's care for River, right? And his just dedication to keeping her safe.
because he
trying
gave
to
up a very
understand her.
cushy life as a doctor, and he's a brilliant surgeon, all this
Oh, yeah.
stuff to rescue his sister from the jaws of the big bad.
And so
government.
his like devotion to keeping her safe and figuring out what's wrong with her and trying to help is like, yeah, it's probably one of the highest pieces of goodness in there. Of course, like there's other characters who give good counsel and are loyal friends. You've got Kaylee, you've got Shepherd Book, you've got Zoe and Wash, and Captain and Malcolm Reynolds, who's very principled. He's a scallywag and a scoundrel,
Yep.
but he's
And
got-
very flawed.
Oh, absolutely. But he's got his principles he sticks by at the very least.
And frequently helps out people while making a show of being aloof and not caring. Frequently helps out people. And,
Helps out people that do him more harm than good by helping.
Yep.
Because...
And his crew.
And his crew. Because there's several episodes where it's like, hey, we have a distress call, or hey, you're in the middle of this job, but this job puts other people at risk, and it's not a good thing. The people we're doing the job for are bad, so you double cross them and pay the price later. But like the desire to do good for its own sake, to be the hero when it's not your place or not helpful to you, they get in that all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's mainly it.
Those are kind of the main themes: the family of the crew and their principles they go by.
Yeah. Well, beauty. We got a lot into like sort of the aesthetics of the show and the execution.
And like it's a little rough. It's 2002 through 2005.
Well, it can't be here and there,
Well,
but
it can't
like,
be here and there, especially with the effects. But costume design, set design, the interior of the ship.
The writing is really good.
The writing's really snappy. There's this shot at the beginning of the movie Serenity where we start in the
It's a
cockpit,
oneer.
where it's like one long tracking shot. It hidden cuts, obviously,
Right.
but like you get a really good layout of the ship and a really good feel of like where everything is
You
relative
see
to
all
each
the
other.
characters
And
in their environments, in their roles they usually fulfill on the ship.
And so just like that, there's some good camera work in there here and there, and just some good cinematography, some really convincing good set designs.
Yeah.
The ship itself is a character in almost as much as the people in it are.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's well put together, it's well made, and when and honestly, some of the space shots of the ship are just fine. They hold up. It's only really when they get into the harsh sunlight of a snowy canyon and there's bobbing and weaving, and it's like, okay, that explosion looks like it's from Halo.
Yeah. Yeah.
The cutscenes of Halo, which are good.
You see the cracks a little bit here and there, but nothing that's so distracting that makes the show unwatchable. At least for me. So, Unity, what brings it all together? Family. But not.
Well, it's almost more the ship itself.
Yeah.
Like, the ship is as much of a character, right?
Freedom comes with responsibility.
Yeah. And like the ship represents the freedom they seek. The ship represents
Because
the
if
crew.
Mal wanted to be a loner, he would just go off and hide somewhere. But he's got a crew he takes around with him to do stuff with because he needs people surrounding him. Yeah.
And there's a reason the first couple episodes of the show are called Serenity and the movie's called Serenity. There's also the fact that the battle he lost that lost the war was the battle for Serenity Valley, but which that also represents his failure as a leader.
And he can't find no
previously.
peace.
He can't find no serenity. So really, it's the crew, it's the ship, it's the Firefly.
Random bouts of space Chinese.
Because that's apparently like one of the dominant languages, which is like, that's kind of a fun world building thing.
'Cause they'll just say something with, and sometimes you can, with context clues, you can figure out what they're trying to say. But the rest of the time, it's just like, I have no idea what you just said there, and they're not going to explain it or have subtitles or anything. We're just moving on. Okay.
Honestly, that's a kind of a bold thing to do, and it's like, I respect it.
Yeah.
This is a future where Chinese is a common second language. Sure.
Yeah.
Why not?
Okay. Yeah, I guess anything else? There's, obviously some weird, inappropriate moments here and there sprinkled around.
But it's like, made for TV, so it's like...
It's limited.
It's limited in both its number of times it shows up and how much they show when it shows up.
Right.
But the themes are pervasive because it's trying to be an adult show.
Right. Who aired this?
Fox.
Fox did, okay.
So it's not like HBO stuff.
No. Family Guy, Firefly. Oh gosh. Anyway, after this Sunday afternoon NFL football game, we've got Firefly and King of the Hill.
Texas anime, Space Texas.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah.
I think that about
Those
does
are
it.
our thoughts on it.
Any passing thoughts, Riley? Any observations? Cool.
Okay, cool.
Freedom. Your idea of freedom is bad, and you should feel bad. That's all I have to say to you, Captain.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
Your notion of freedom is distorted.
Because he's looking for...
He wants freedom of indifference, not
Yeah.
freedom for excellence.
Right.
Yep.
And he kind of arrives at a sort of freedom for excellence in spite of himself.
On accident, yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's trying to keep his head down and do his own thing, but keeps getting roped into things for the greater good for other people's benefits.
And he can't help himself. So, yeah. I think that's about all we have to say about the show. We'll see if we get the RSS feed back up and running, at least for Spotify. We'll figure stuff out. Internet Archive.
Everything that isn't YouTube
Right.
depends upon
YouTube
the RSS feed.
will continue as normal.
So be sure to like and comment and subscribe.
Smash that like button.
The Bloodborne episode has 22 views. So, we'll see.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Bloodborne is something people like to look up on YouTube, I guess.
Also, the Zelda series is finally back up and running after like 2 years.
I got
The
to
cool
make some,
thing is coming up. So we have our 150th episode coming up next, and whenever we do that, who knows? Coming February, that'll be 5 years of the Palladium Papists, which is kind of crazy.
That is pretty crazy.
So I a few months yet. We're recording this early November, on a day that doesn't have any particular significance at
No,
all.
nothing
None-
is happening today.
Nothing is happening.
If there
today
was,
at
which
all.
there certainly
Which
wasn't,
certainly isn't.
it wouldn't. Well,
I didn't drive all the way to my hometown to go to the event center at all.
but
for
if you
any
did, you
reason.
would have. But you didn't.
I
It's
did
not.
because it's not.
But if you did, you would have.
We're gonna wrap
That's
up
just
the
a
show.
strange-
We would tell you but if we're gonna wrap up the show, which we probably
Which we
won't.
certainly are.
If they're going to listen to us in other places, which
They're
they
gonna make
certainly are, where
questions,
can they
comments,
find
concerns
us?
or complaints at the palladiumpapers@gmail.com. You can email us there, but you won't because you can't.
Which you certainly do not.
Anyway, we're on YouTube, Spotify when we get that fixed, Apple Podcasts,
When we get that
Hybid,
fixed.
and
If you're listening to us on there, we have that fixed. We got that figured out.
yeah, fear not. YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, yeah, that is what it is. I think we've covered everything. So, talk to you guys later. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.